Welcome to the D6 Family Ministry Podcast, a place where ideas, principles, and personalities come together to give you
I don't know anything more important
advantage that
in our society or in the kingdom of God
and home
than to help the church help the family.
Discipleship is not an event, it's a way of life.
And one day it just hit me that discipleship at home was not about doing more. It was about inviting Christ into what we were already doing.
The goal of family ministry is not families sitting on the couch holding hands and singing Kumbaya. The ultimate goal is families that love God, love people, and make disciples of all peoples.
So that's why you're here. You're here to say 1 hour a week, as significant and as awesome as it is, we know that it's not enough, and we want to be intentional with every hour.
You're listening to the D6 Podcast. Here are your hosts, Marianne Howard, Ron Hunter, and Josh Wooten.
You know, last week we talked to Rob Rienow, and this week we have his lovely bride, Amy Rienow, on the podcast today. And I love how they just do marriage and family and ministry all together. When they travel, their kids are there with them. It's just that what they do as a family, and they model it so well. Unfortunately, as parents, though, sometimes we model things that aren't so great, and we experience the what we like to call hashtag parenting fails. I could write a book on parenting fails alone. I think one of mine, and I'll just get real for a second. It's not, of course I've done dumb dad stuff and failed, but like little superficial things. But I remember the first time my son really crossed a line that I never thought that he would ever cross. I'll just leave it at that. It's not my story to tell, but I would love to say my reaction was grace-filled, and that I said, "Oh, son, I understand. I too, even though I too had done exactly what he did in high school, it was nothing. And I had done far worse, if I can be completely honest. But there is something that snapped in me, and I went full blown, I can't believe you would ever do this. And I reacted in a way that it took me a long time to get him to want to come back to me and actually share what he was experiencing or any hardship. And it has been one of the biggest parenting fails I ever had, was the way that I reacted and completely lost my mind, I felt like, and put undue expectations on him. It's hard enough being a pastor's kid, but when I reacted to that, I just fed into every single stereotype, even uttered the phrase, "What do you think people would think if they found out?" And I looked at it from my perspective of how it would affect me. And it was a great learning experience. And gosh, it is still to this day, I'm apologizing and reminding him, hey, son, I know it is not easy, being a teenager, and it's been tough, and we've gone through things that, we didn't go through with your sister, but I'm telling you, I relate more to you. I was more like you when I was in high school. You and I are a lot more alike than you would ever like to admit to anybody else. And we are now on the other side of that. He's turning 18, he's graduating, and we are beyond that. But looking back at my parenting, if there was one that I could get back and do over, that would be the big do-over for me.
Well, we have them. And, Amy Rienow, she released a book a few years ago called Not So Perfect Mom. And she really does set us free as parents in that, we can't live in shame. I will just tell you on a more recent note that Xander, my son, my 15-year-old, he's learning how to drive right now. And I need all of our podcast listeners praying for me in this time, because guys, it's scary. He scares me to death. And
there's nothing more scary than riding with a 15-year-old in the car.
And I don't want to do it. Okay. And so his dad is spending a lot of time teaching him how to drive. And so I thought, you know what? It's been a while. Chad says he's doing really good. So the other weekend, I said, Xander, why don't you drive me to the donut shop? Ladies and gentlemen, this child is not ready to be driving. I don't know what his dad's definition of a good driver and my definition of a good driver is, but they're very different definitions. And we drive to the donut shop. I think I was crouched down in the dash, down underneath the dash, because I was just devastated. I mean, it was just scary. It was so scary. I don't know how we lived. Just by the grace of God, Jesus carried us straight to the donut shop. And he goes in to buy the donuts, and he comes out, and I've gone back to the driver's seat. I just told him, he goes, Mom, why can't I drive home? And I said, baby, I believe in you. You are doing great, but Mama's not. So I'm driving us home. I'm not ready. That's probably the control freak in me. It wasn't him. It was totally me. He needs a little bit more time and practice before I can do it. And really, me like being so freaked out doesn't help him be a good driver. So I just think he needs to be with his dad for a little bit longer. And anybody that has some wisdom for me on how to deal with the anxiety that comes with him driving and me riding in the passenger seat, please email me, Marianne@randallhouse.com. Okay. And randallhouse.com. Please give me advice on this. I need it.
I will give you a nugget. Driving school. That is money well spent.
We're doing parent side. And I think maybe we should have done the other thing.
No, I after about 2 rides with each of my kids, I thought, nope, my sanity, my state of mind, and I want to live.
Yeah.
I know I'm probably worth more dead, but to them, to my life insurance policy. But that was the best money. I would have paid them double if they don't know that, but I would have, because that peace of mind. Then I still don't like to ride with my son. I'll be completely honest. He's 18. He's been doing it for a while. I still don't like to ride with him. It's a faith journey. It brings you closer to the Lord.
In every way. Well, I'm excited about our interview today. Just as she talks about Amy, she wrote the book, Not So Perfect Mom, but she really addresses being a pastor's wife and raising children, pastors' children, the expectations that come with that. And so there's a lot of good wisdom here. She really gets to some vulnerable places for pastors' wives and mothers to pastors' children. So I just want to encourage you to listen up. This is going to be a really powerful interview, and we'll discuss a little bit more on the other side.
We are pleased to announce one of our newest titles, Make Up Your Mind, by Michelle Niedert and Denise Pass. Our mindsets matter. Every day we fight battle after battle in our minds. Negative mindsets limit our existence by keeping us bound in unhealthy habits and attitudes, unless we know how to break free of them. In Make Up Your Mind, you will learn about the root behind common mental battles and negative thought patterns. This book focuses on 10 key negative mindsets and gives tips on how to overcome them using scripture and real-life solutions as we adopt the mind of Christ. Each chapter includes a devotional application section and a Counselor's Corner section featuring licensed counselor Michelle Niedert. Make Up Your Mind is available for purchase now at randallhouse.com.
We are joined today by Miss Amy Rienow. Amy's most important ministry is loving her husband and partnering with him to help their 7 children follow God. She serves with Visionary Family Ministries. She's practiced marriage and family therapy and is the author of several books, including Visionary Parenting and Not So Perfect Mom. I can definitely relate to that one. And Amy and her family, they live in West Chicago, Illinois, and I am so thrilled to have this conversation today with you.
I'm so happy to be here, Casey.
Well, selfishly, I have been looking forward to this conversation for weeks, honestly. And we were just talking, I was telling you about a friend of mine having conversations about being a pastor's wife in knowing that this conversation was coming up. So she and I came up with some questions that as pastors' wives, we would love to hear your heart and your vision and your experience just to speak into us. And I also want to be careful because we have parents who listen to this podcast, we have church leaders, and I'm afraid that some of them might tap out by saying, hey, I'm not a pastor's wife, so I'm not going to listen. And I want to be careful of that. So what can you say to those people who are not pastors' wives that they might need to lean in and listen to this conversation?
That's a great question. I think, first of all, pastors' wives have, whether they wanted to or not, have to become experts at balancing ministry and their home. And in reality, everybody who's serving in a church at any capacity, and, they understand that tension. And I think the only difference is that pastors' wives are often in that position, not necessarily by their own choice, but they married into this whole role. And it's kind of, that's how I got here. That's not how I expected. That wasn't exactly my life plan.
Right. So there are some who get married and then become pastors, and there are some who are pastors and then get married, and those are two different things, right?
Exactly. And I just was not ever expecting to be a pastor's wife. So when this all came about, my courtship was 10 months from first date to wedding. It was quite a learning curve of, wow, what is this that I just married into? I married into a job I didn't really expect.
Right. Can you talk about some of the frustrations that pastors' wives has? I know that you talk to a lot of pastors' wives. So what are some of those things that you're hearing in conversation?
Yeah, I think one of the main ones is coming to church on Sunday morning often brings a whole set of conflicting emotions, in the sense that it's, you want to come with a heart of worship, right? And you're trying to come to let the Lord speak to you and minister to you. And at the same time, so many times I can remember just coming in to church feeling, okay, who am I going to meet that I dropped a ball with? What expectation I didn't meet? And, and let alone you've got all the same issues that a lot of other people have, especially when you have young kids. You're trying to figure out what works for all of them. But there's this sense of, how many other people here am I letting down? And that was a weight that I didn't realize. I would say that was one of the biggest frustrations I had, and one I constantly hear from other pastors' wives.
Right, yeah, and I completely relate to that. And you also mentioned kids in that. Can you talk a little bit about what it's like to be not just a pastor's wife, but a mom, and maybe the weight that your kids might feel that people might not understand?
Well, the Lord really, thankfully, got hold of my heart at an early time in my parenting, my mothering, that I was really a people pleaser. And that was an idol for me, in the sense that I had just been one of those people who could keep a lot of balls going in the air and didn't realize how much that my identity kind of depended on that. And as the Lord started to put that to death in my life, it made me realize that if I hadn't gone through that experience, I would be more concerned about what other people thought of my kids as opposed to what my kids needed from me. And that, I think, is very difficult for us as pastors' wives to really understand, that we have to be primarily focused when it comes to our kids on how are we meeting their needs and understanding their hearts, and not allowing other people's expectations on them to kind of invade our parenting and what we're expecting of our own kids.
Right. Now, we've talked about, there's a lot of people who know you as a pastor's wife. There are people around all the time, but this statement might surprise a lot of listeners when I say that being a pastor's wife is extremely lonely. Mm-hmm. I think it shocks people sometimes. They're like, why? You're surrounded by people all the time. People need you. But can you talk about that loneliness? Can you unpack that a little bit?
Oh, absolutely. And again, probably 10 years in, I realized that I was spending my time with so many people, but I had very few close friends. Yeah. And what was happening is that I was continually responding to people who were initiating with me, and I was answering all of these relational calls and getting coffee with this woman and, meeting with these high school girls in the youth ministry. But before I knew it, I was in many ways abandoning my friends. I was never the one initiating with my friends. And the reality is they would be initiating with me and either never getting a call back or, realize I was very busy, and they just stopped initiating. And that was so painful. And it taught me, one thing I'll be talking about in my workshop is just that it's helpful for us as pastors' wives to kind of keep our relationships in certain categories, in the sense that I kind of have a category of ministry relationships, knowing that this is where God has me helping and walking alongside certain people that really need my support. But then to also understand, who are my fellowship relationships? Who are the relationships that when I spend time with them, I'm feeling encouraged and built up in my faith and in my spirit, and not to sacrifice those fellowship relationships. In fact, I would encourage pastors' wives to prioritize, and anybody out there, find those people in your life that you feel encouraged and built up with. Those are incredibly important relationships, and it's easy to sacrifice them when we're in our busy lives.
Yeah, you're right. This is so good. This is not disappointing in the buildup that I have had in the last couple of months. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Splink is a simple way to help families in your church link together spiritually. It comes as a free weekly email with ideas that parents can use to have fun, make memories, and talk with their kids. Those teachable moments give moms and dads opportunity to share spiritual truths and life lessons. And no matter how busy life is, there's always time to Splink. Share d6family.com with the parents in your ministry so they can sign up today to start receiving free weekly Splink.
We are back with Miss Amy Rienow. Amy, I've been looking forward to this conversation. Really, it's already speaking to my heart. Just knowing that I'm not alone in this, that the feelings that I have had in ministry, you're at least expressing exactly my situation or my experiences. And again, I know that you talk to a ton of pastors' wives. So if you have 60 seconds to talk to a pastor's wife, what is your one word of encouragement for her, or maybe your piece of advice for her?
I would want to encourage her that she doesn't need to reinvent herself to do this job well. That sometimes we think as pastor's wife, we need to become different people. And I have a great story of a friend who is a pastor's wife who is a total introvert. Well, I am a total extrovert. And honestly, I love when I connect with her because it sort of amazes me how God can use such totally different personalities and how she has fulfilled this role as pastor's wife with the way God created her. And we really can learn from each other in that way, but don't put this pressure on yourself. Like, God knows who you are. He put you in this role. And that's the other thing I want to encourage women with, is that it's such a special job because God chose you. It's so amazing to me sometimes because, like I said, I didn't plan. Like, you can't go to college and say, "Oh, my career is to be a pastor's wife."
I'd like to study.
Yeah, right. So that wasn't really an option. Yeah. Yet it became my most important role, far more than a career choice I could have made. So God chose you for this role, and therefore He will equip you, and you don't need to reinvent who you are.
Wow, yeah, that's so good. I know that you're not just passionate about being a pastor's wife, like as in the ministry, but even in your bio, you say that your first ministry is to your husband. And let's be honest, marriages are under attack in every form and fashion and every turn, especially for people who are in ministry. Can you talk to those pastors' wives about protecting their marriage? But also, could you talk to other church people about protecting the pastor and his wife in their marriage?
Yeah, that's a great question. And boy, so much that can be said on
I know.
that.
We don't have
a lot of
time.
But the enemy is not only trying to destroy marriages, but when the enemy is intentionally focused on marriages and ministry, specifically pastor's family, because they're the first of the church in the sense. So when the enemy can attack and take down that first position, so much heartache and so much can follow after that. So
we've seen a lot of that lately, haven't we? Yeah,
absolutely. And I'll tell you one thing: my heart, when I hear about a pastor who's fallen or some scandal, you know what? It changes you when you're a pastor's wife. I don't really have an ounce of judgment. I just feel overwhelmed with compassion because it is such a difficult road. And the enemy is people don't understand that spiritual attack against that family. So first of all, as a pastor's wife, yes, your primary ministry is to your husband. And it's a challenging one. I mean, in the sense that it does require intentionality and time, and it requires disappointing people in your church that may expect you to be something, somewhere else or have more passion for something else. But especially when you're in the season of young kids, you don't have a lot of time beyond prioritizing your husband and your your own family. So you need to understand that that is your first and primary ministry, and not to allow people's expectations and opinions to sway you off of that. But then in my workshop, I'll be talking about a lot of specific things we can do to encourage our husbands. But then just as far as people in the church, I would just encourage people in the church to understand that the people who are ministering to you, your pastor, his wife, and his family, they need to hear appreciation. They need to hear like words of gratitude, and not just words of expectation or words of this is what we're hoping that you're doing, or, oh, we were disappointed you might not be saying something harmless when you're saying, oh, we were disappointed you couldn't be at women's ministry. But also just say, if those things are couched in a lot more compassion and understanding, along with thank you notes and gift cards and things that, I had just a sweet story. I had a family that gave us $1,000 just to pay for Christmas for our family in I don't know how many years. It was like 5 or 6 years. And if that family didn't do that, we wouldn't have had that much of a Christmas. So that's the kind of thing that just really blesses the people, your leaders in your church, but specifically those pastors' wives. Think about things that would be encouragements and blessings to them, and pursue that for the pastors and their wives in your church.
Yeah, that's so good. So, are there any resources that you would tell pastors' wives to utilize, like specifically on this topic? Is there anything that you can point us to?
Well, that is such a great question. The person that I used to go to was Jill Briscoe. I don't know if that name is even familiar anymore, but she was the one who had a specific ministry for pastors' wives. And I honestly I don't think she's doing that anymore. I really don't know where. She's much older, so I'm not sure where Jill is right now. But
Jill, if you're out there listening,
right? But I honestly think there aren't that many, or I'm not as aware of other people besides Jill Briscoe. But I would say we have a podcast called Family Vision that I would recommend, because I get into a lot of these just conversations, just like we're having right now, where we just have these encouraging and practical conversations about all sorts of these issues. So there is a lot of overlap in other areas, but Jill Briscoe was the expert that I went to.
Okay, awesome. Well, I do know someone who has authored a few books who has some experience in being a pastor's wife, so maybe that's your next book. There we go.
It's so
we
funny.
We can co-author it, and all I'll do is cheer you on. But that's great.
That's exactly what I was thinking on the flight here. I was looking at my workshop notes. I'm like, I have got to get this into a book.
All right, coming D6 2023, Amy Rienow with a new... No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. Amy, thank you so much for this conversation and for your time today. Thanks for being with us at D6.
Thank you, Casey. It's been a delight to be here.
Well, Josh, that was powerful. She said a lot of things in this interview that honestly my heart needed to hear. I'm also a pastor's wife, and that a couple things that stood out to me that really spoke to my heart is being a pastor's wife is extremely lonely, but she also gave some solutions about putting friendships and putting relationships in relational categories. And she said to have ministry relationships and then fellowship relationships. And I wanted to just speak to that for just a minute. I'm really, really good friends with your wife, Josh, and I live in Texas, and Josh's wife, Lena, lives in Nashville. And it's really been so powerful and a gift from God that we've become, yes, we do work together. So we've got a work relationship, but she's become very much a ministry and a fellowship relationship to me. And I think she would say the same thing about me to her. Does. It's a safety thing. And it's been a powerful thing because she's a pastor's wife. I'm a pastor's wife. She's in ministry. I'm in ministry. She's a little bit ahead of me in season in terms of as a mother, and she's safe and she's wise. And so I just want to say to Amy's advice to women out there, if you feel alone, begin praying that God would show you a woman. And I'll tell you, I began praying that. Lena doesn't even live in my community and operate in my community. She's in a whole nother state, and we are heart friends. She's a safe heart friend and vice versa. And so I loved that. And I want you to know that there is another woman out there that wants to share in your season.
Yes, and you're right. The way, I know that it's hard being a pastor's wife, but man, I want to give a shout out to my wife and the way that she balances being a wife, a mom, a friend, and her career and church like a graceful champion. It's so miraculous. I don't see how she does it. I think God gives those women in those positions something that only can come from him to allow him to balance, because it's not normal to have that kind of very few careers or jobs come with that kind of expectation from a spouse, and it's almost unspoken. Hey, you hire a pastor, well, you get 2 for the price of 1 plus a tithe. but I think she was very it was very eye-opening, when she says, my first ministry is to my spouse, and don't let other people's expectations dictate your relationship with your spouse. That's a tough one to swallow, but I do admit, when she talked about how relationships came to an end when you start to work in church, and I admit, I have lost more relationships and friends to ministry than I care to even mention. It actually is painful. One of those things when I listen to her talk about that, I have all these people that flood my mind of that. Yeah, I was friends. We had deep relationships at one time, but ministry overrode those relationships. It just did not allow me margin to do that. I'm thankful that in that it is not allowed, to take away from the one relationship that is most important, and that is the one to my spouse, and that is the line in the sand that I will draw. And so I'm thankful for Amy, her wisdom, for the Rienows and their passion for equipping and empowering people in the home and the church, and very grateful for them. We're grateful for you. Next week, we've got our friend Keith Farron, who is very unorthodox in the way that he teaches scripture, and you will not want to miss this. It is going to be a treat, and I promise you think you've seen it all or heard it all. This guy's got something a little different, and it's not so often that happens in ministry in the way that we present the gospel. So you definitely don't want to miss that. We're grateful to have you with us today, and we look forward to hearing from you next week on the D6 Family Ministry Podcast. Be blessed and have a wonderful week.
You've been listening to the D6 Podcast. You can learn more about D6 at d6family.com.